Discover the incredible journey of a pregnant widow, from heartbreak to unexpected true love. In the small town of Maplewood, the flickering neon lights of Rosie's diner painted the streets in hues of hope and sorrow. Sarah, a 28-year-old waitress, felt the weight of both as she poured coffee for customers who meant well but rarely understood the storm raging inside her. Just months ago, she was a doting wife to David, a beloved war veteran. Now, she was navigating the harsh terrain of grief, a widow, soon to be a mother, in a world that often judged without knowing. Every plate she served felt like a reminder of her loss, each cheerful smile from a regular piercing her heart like a shard of glass. The whispers of the townsfolk followed her, their sideways glances heavy with unspoken judgments. "Poor girl, so young to lose her husband," they murmured. Often, Sarah found herself holding back tears, pretending to enjoy their warm coffee and small-town chatter while inside, she was a fragile vase ready to shatter. Yet amidst the never-ending cycle of grief, a flicker of life stirred within her. Her baby kicked gently, urging her to push through the haze. Every shift was a battle, the clanking of dishes blurring into the sounds of her husband's laughter. When the diner emptied late at night, the silence felt overwhelming. And then, one evening, a rugged carpenter named Jack walked in, strikingly handsome yet deeply weathered, resembling someone who owned scars of his own. Their interactions began awkwardly, tinged with a shared understanding of loss. Jack often fidgeted, stealing glances at Sarah when he thought she wasn't looking. "How's the baby coming along?" he asked one night, the question hanging in the air like a lifeline. It startled her, reminding her that her grief was not just her burden but also an unnoticed specter in others' lives. They danced around one another, their connection charged with vulnerability, a bond forged through shared hardship. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." In the backdrop of their growing friendship, the community's whispers only grew louder. Sarah felt their judgment closing in. They were not naive to the history that lingered beneath Jack's rugged demeanor. Struggling to hold their heads high, she and Jack found solace in their pain. Each coffee-filled night brought them closer, each brush of their hands igniting an unspoken promise of healing. Sarah came to feel that Jack could understand her pain and her joys, the chaos of impending motherhood. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. But just as their worlds began to intertwine, an unexpected revelation emerged from the shadows, threatening to fracture the fragile bond echoing between them. Joseph, the town's gossip, uncovered a secret, a connection neither had anticipated, tying their fates together in ways they could have never foreseen. Staring out into the diner's dim glow, Sarah's heart raced. The ghosts from her past loomed heavy, whispering that to love again could destroy everything she held dear. Would she risk the future with Jack, or would she allow her late husband's memory to haunt her forever? The diner buzzed with the familiar sounds of clattering dishes and the hum of conversation, but to Sarah, it felt like the world was closing in. Jack hadn't come in that night, and the absence of his warm presence left a cold ache in her chest. She tried to focus on her work, pouring coffee and delivering pie to the tables, but found herself staring out the window, searching for any sign of him. Her mind raced with the implications of Joseph's reveal. She knew their connection was deeper than mere circumstance. The thought of her past intertwining with Jack's was daunting. What if it all unraveled? What if the townsfolk whispered again, and this time the rumors were sharper, cutting deeper? The laughter of her regulars felt like a stark reminder of the warmth she craved, and yet, felt so far away. As the shadows stretched across the diner, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Jack stepped in, his head bowed slightly against the cold breeze. The moment their eyes met, it was like the rest of the world vanished. He was a light, slicing through the dense fog of her fears. With a soft smile, he approached the counter, and Sarah's heart felt fuller than it had in months. "Hey, stranger," she said, trying to keep her tone casual. "Thought you got lost." Jack chuckled nervously. "Just had a lot on my mind." The weight of his words hung like an unspoken truth. They both knew. "Me too," she replied, glancing down as she wiped her hands on her apron. "It's hard, some days." Her voice trembled just a bit, the honesty pouring out like the coffee she served. "I can imagine," he said, reaching for a mug. "I've had my own battles." There it was again, shared suffering, the invisible string pulling them closer in ways neither could articulate. As they spoke about mundane things, a new recipe at the diner, his latest project down at the docks, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Was it possible to let someone in? To allow Jack into her shattered heart? With every exchange, the weight on her chest seemed to lighten, but just when she felt she could take the leap, guilt surged within her. "Jack," she started hesitantly, her voice shaky. "About what Joseph said," he swallowed hard, eyes narrowing slightly. "I heard." His voice was low but steady. "People talk, Sarah. It's their way of coping with loss. But we know the truth, right?" She nodded, conflicted. "But what if they're right? What if I'm just running from David's memory?" Jack leaned closer, his gaze intense. "You're not running, Sarah. You're living. And you have every right to build a future, even if the past is still here with you." Something in his tone, so fierce and protective, ignited a courage within her. Maybe he was right. Could she allow herself to feel joy again, amidst the shadows of the past? Just then, the bell above the diner door jingled again, and in walked Joseph, his jovial demeanor a stark contrast to the tension lingering in the air. Sarah's heart seized. What if he chose this moment to unleash his gossip? She felt their shared moment slip away like grains of sand. "Evening, folks," Joseph boomed, eyeing them both with a sly smile. "Hope I'm not interrupting anything interesting." Both Jack and Sarah froze, knowing the eyes of the town were everywhere. Would their moment survive the scrutiny? And more importantly, could Sarah find the strength to stand up for what she wanted? In that instant, the cafe felt unbearably small while the stakes felt impossibly high. Sarah's pulse raced, caught between the whispers of the past and the allure of a future she longed to explore. Was she ready to confront the judgment, to take Jack's hand and step boldly into love, despite the shadows? As uncertainty wrapped around her, Sarah realized she stood at a precipice. In her heart, she could feel the baby kick again, a reminder of the new life she had to protect. What would she decide? Would she brave the storm and chase what her heart truly desired? The moment hung, thick with possibility. The diner seemed to pause, the air thick with anticipation. Joseph's grin widened as he surveyed the two of them, the weight of his presence pressing against Sarah's chest. She could feel the eyes of other patrons subtly shift in their direction, curiosity swirling like the steam rising from the coffee pot. "Nothing at all, Joseph," Jack replied, a hint of defiance in his voice. He leaned against the counter, determined not to break eye contact with Sarah. She could sense the quiet strength in him, a solidity that made her heart race. "Oh, come on now." Joseph chuckled, as if trying to dismiss the tension. "You two look like you're plotting something. I hope it involves pie." Sarah forced a laugh, but inside, her heart pounded. What if Joseph spread rumors? What if he used whatever he saw in this moment to make their lives more complicated? Fear gnawed at her, even as she felt the magnetic pull toward Jack. "Just the usual," Sarah said, her voice still wavering as she busied herself with refilling cups. Yet, she couldn't ignore the hush that overtook the diner. The din faded, replaced by the sound of her heart thumping in her ears. Would she let fear dictate her choices? In what felt like a blink, she turned to Jack. Their eyes locked again, and she saw a flicker of concern dance in his. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but the words seemed trapped in the silence that enveloped them. "I think we should talk," Jack began, when suddenly another voice cut through the air. "Talk about what?" It was Doris, the diner's favorite elderly patron, who'd always been a bit too nosy for Sarah's liking. She leaned in, her cane tapping softly on the floor, testing the waters. "Is there something you two should share with the rest of us?" The diner erupted in murmurs. Sarah felt the heat rise to her cheeks as she imagined the stories that could unfurl from this one evening. Joseph chimed in, his tone teasing yet sharp. "Must be some sweet nothings between these two." He took a step closer, hands on his hips, enjoying the spectacle he created. "Let us hear it, shall we?" The laughter from nearby tables filled the air, a sound that felt cruel amidst her rising anxiety. But Jack didn't waver. He took a step forward, reaching for Sarah's hand, intertwining their fingers. The warmth of his touch reassured her, grounding her in that chaotic moment. "Actually," he said, his voice clear and determined, "Sarah and I are navigating something together. It's not easy, but we're in this together." His gaze turned toward Joseph, unyielding. "And I'd appreciate it if you kept your comments to yourself." The diner fell silent again, the weight of Jack's words settling heavily. He was defending her, and though she felt a swirl of emotions, fear, gratitude, and the spark of hope, it was liberating to have someone stand beside her. "Sounds serious," Doris exclaimed, a gleam of mischief in her eyes. But instead of judgment, she offered a soft smile. "And you know, dear, sometimes the best things come from a little mess. Just be kind to each other." The murmurs softened, becoming more curious than critical. Lively conversations resumed, but now Sarah felt an invisible barrier around them, shielding her and Jack from the town's scrutiny. "I didn't expect that," she whispered, squeezing his hand tightly. Jack smiled, his eyes shining with sincerity. "I meant every word. You don't have to face this alone. I'm here, no matter what." For the first time, the shadows of her past seemed less daunting, the future feeling a little brighter. Could she really embrace this chance at happiness? It was a question that lingered in the air, heavy with promise. But just then, the bell jingled again. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she watched a familiar silhouette step into the diner, David's sister, Elise. Was she here for answers, or was she about to stir the pot further? The moment's warmth retreated, replaced by the cold uncertainty of a new storm brewing. Would Sarah have the strength to face what was coming? She had made a small step toward joy, but would it be enough amidst the tides of her past? Elise walked in, her presence casting a shadow that seemed to stretch across the diner. Sarah's pulse quickened, each beat echoing the uncertainty swirling in her mind. What did David's sister want? Elise scanned the room, her eyes pausing on Sarah and Jack. In that moment, Sarah felt as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. She exchanged a quick glance with Jack, who squeezed her hand reassuringly, but doubt lingered in the corners of her heart. "Sarah." Elise's voice broke through the thick atmosphere, blending annoyance and urgency. "Can we talk?" She approached them, her expression serious but not unfriendly. Jack's grip tightened, a silent defense, as Sarah swallowed hard, her stomach knotting. "Of course, Elise." With a quick nod, she gestured for them to follow her to a quieter corner of the diner. The jingle of the bell announced the arrival of other customers, but the chatter felt distant now, a blur beneath the weight of Elise's intensity. They settled down at a small booth away from prying eyes. Elise leaned in, her brow furrowed. "I heard about you and Jack." Her tone softened, but the underlying concern was evident. "Is it true? Are you really moving on?" The words cut deep, sharper than Sarah anticipated. Hadn't this been her hope? But now, it felt like an accusation. She met Elise's gaze, finding a flicker of sadness mixed with disbelief. "I'm trying, Elise." It's not easy. Elise crossed her arms, her face a mosaic of emotions. I get that, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But I worry about you. After everything that happened with David, I know, Sarah interjected, the memories creeping in like a chill. David meant everything to me, but I can't stay in the past forever. I have to think about my life now. Elise's expression softened, and for a heartbeat, they shared an understanding. The pain of loss was familiar territory between them. I don't want to be the person who holds you back or makes you feel guilty, Elise said, her voice barely above a whisper. I want you to find happiness. It's hard to see you with someone else. Jack shifted, breaking the silence that had settled around them. I promise, Elise. I'm not trying to replace David. I'm just here to support Sarah in any way she needs. Elise looked at Jack, appraising him. For a moment, the tension in her shoulders relaxed. I just want to make sure she's okay, she replied, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. She deserves to be happy. Sarah felt a swell of gratitude towards Jack. His steady resolve offered her a lifeline, a flicker of hope against the shadow of uncertainty. We'll take it slow. I won't rush anything, Sarah assured Elise. This isn't easy for me either. But I really do want to see where this goes. Jack makes me feel alive again. The disbelief melted from Elise's face, replaced by a tentative smile. Okay. I trust you. Just remember, it's okay to let yourself feel joy, even if it feels complicated. Their conversation seemed to soar above the din of the diner, wrapping around them with unspoken comfort. Perhaps there was space for healing, even amidst the bittersweet memories swirling in her heart. Just then, the revving of an engine outside drew their attention. A sleek car pulled up, unfamiliar and out of place in their small town. They watched curiously as a tall figure stepped out, a man Sarah recognized instantly. Panic washed over her. Isn't that David's friend, Mark? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Elise's face turned pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. What is he doing here? What could this mean for Sarah, Jack, and the fragile connections they were trying to build? Would the arrival of Mark herald a new wave of complications, or perhaps something more foreboding? Mark strode into the diner like he belonged there, his confident posture and easy smile drawing glances from the other patrons. But to Sarah, each step he took seemed to echo with heavy memories she didn't want to revisit. Elise gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. What is he doing here? She repeated, a tremor in her voice. Jack's grip around Sarah's hand tightened further. We should just pretend we didn't see him, he suggested, scanning the diner for a back exit. But Sarah couldn't look away. It was like watching a train wreck unfold, each inch he covered closer to their booth a reminder of laughter and nights shared, the kind of memories that could hit you like a freight train when you weren't expecting them. Mark's eyes met hers, and for a sliver of a second, Sarah felt a rush of emotions battling within her: nostalgia, anger, and a complicated mix of affection. He motioned toward their corner booth, a slight wave that was easy and casual, but behind it, she sensed something deeper lurking. Hey, Sarah. Elise. Mark called out, his voice cutting through the muted conversations like a siren. All three turned their heads in unison, stuck between the urge to greet him and the instinct to hide. Hey, Sarah replied, forcing a smile, her heart racing like it was on overdrive. What brings you back to town? Mark approached, stopping at their booth. Just thought I'd drop by and check in on you guys. There was a hint of sincerity in his tone, but it felt overshadowed by something unsaid. You didn't mention coming here, Elise said, her voice clipped, defensive. A fleeting expression crossed Mark's face, something like regret. I wasn't sure how you all were handling things, he said softly, glancing briefly at Sarah again. Jack shifted uncomfortably, looking between Sarah and Mark, sensing the tension. You know, it's been a hard time for everyone since he started, but Mark cut in smoothly. I wanted to offer my support. If you need help, or someone to talk to. The offer hung in the air, heavy and complex. Sarah's heart clenched. It felt like a lifeline and a weight all at once. Thank you, Mark, but I think I'm okay, she said quietly, surprising even herself with the firmness in her voice. Are you sure? He pressed gently, concern creeping into his expression. Losing David was rough. I get it. It was too much. Too soon. Too raw. The memories of David, the late-night talks, his laughter, the way he often made her feel invincible flooded her mind. I'm trying to move forward, she whispered, feeling the eyes of both Jack and Elise on her, holding their breath. Mark nodded slowly, but the expression on his face was unreadable. I just want what's best for you, he said, and a flicker of vulnerability broke through his confident facade. Before anyone could respond, the waitress arrived to fill their coffee cups, breaking the tension at the table momentarily. Sarah seized the distraction to gather her thoughts. Her heart was a hurricane, memories twirling around like leaves in the wind. When she looked back at Mark, his gaze was intense, as if he was trying to read something deeper, something hidden within her. What did he see? I'm here if you want to talk, he added, softness lacing his voice. Elise's expression was a tangle of confusion and concern, while Jack remained stoic, his jaw set tight, an unspoken warning radiating off him. Thanks, but I think I need some space right now, Sarah finally said, and to her surprise, it felt liberating to claim her boundaries. Mark nodded, understanding replacing any previous tension. All right. I'll be around. With that, he turned and walked away, his presence lingering like a shadow. As the door swung closed behind him, Sarah took a deep breath, releasing the weight that settled across her chest. Are you okay? Jack asked, his voice low, searching her eyes for the truth. I will be, she whispered, but doubt still knotted her stomach. Outside, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows in the diner. The conversation with Mark had opened a door she thought was firmly shut. Would it lead to healing, or would it deepen the wounds she was trying to mend? One thing was clear, her journey was far from over, and the ghosts of her past were not done with her yet. What would happen next as Sarah faced the echoes of her past and the uncertain future with Jack? Would she find the strength to embrace her new beginning, or would the shadows of remembrance pull her back into the past? The diner grew quiet after Mark left, a heavy silence settling over their booth. Lost in thought, Sarah stared at the coffee swirling in her cup, its surface mirroring the turbulence inside her. Elise, can you believe that? He just waltzes back in like nothing happened, Jack said, anger creeping into his voice. He was leaning back, arms crossed, tension radiating off him. Elise shook her head, her eyes darting between Sarah and Jack. It's tough, Jax. Sarah's already dealing with a lot. Yeah, but he's not helping. He's just here to what? Sarah interrupted, finally looking up. To remind me of all I've lost? Or to offer his support when he chose to walk away? Each word felt like a small knife, sharp yet necessary. She saw Jack's face soften. I get it, but there's still something about him. Something you might still need to unpack. Unpack? Sarah echoed, incredulous. There's nothing left to unpack. What do you do when the person you thought would always be there is suddenly gone? And now here's Mark, acting like he cares? Elise leaned in, her voice gentle yet firm. Sometimes, Sarah, it's not just about them. It's about how you feel, where you're at. You have to sort through these things yourself, and it's okay to still feel something for him. Feel what? Sarah huffed, frustration bubbling to the surface. Confusion? Anger? Sadness? It's all there. It's all I have left. Then talk about it, Jack urged, his voice dropping to a softer tone. Don't let his presence tie you in knots. Let it out. Sarah bit her lip, fighting the tears that threatened to spill over. The memories flickered in her mind again, David laughing with a goofy grin, his gentle hands brushing her hair away from her face. The space beside her felt so unbearably empty now. Maybe he just wants to apologize, Elise offered tentatively. It could be his way of saying he cares. Cares? Sarah spat back, a mixture of bitterness and sorrow. When he could have been there for me? When everything fell apart? You think this one visit erases the years he wasn't there? Silence wrapped around them once more, heavy and palpable. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to steady. I need to move forward, however I can. Not to keep getting pulled back. Jack reached across the table and squeezed her hand. No one is saying you have to go back to him. But sometimes it helps to talk. Maybe confronting the past is what you need to do. What if it just makes it worse? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Then you deal with it, like you are now. Jack smiled gently, trying to offer some hope. You're stronger than you think, Sarah. And you have us. You're not alone. Tears brimmed in her eyes, and she nodded, feeling lighter somehow. Thanks, you guys. Really? Just then, the waitress came by again to refill their cups. Sarah managed a weak smile as she served them. Can I get you anything else? No, we're good, Jack replied. As the waitress left, Sarah looked out the window, watching the last rays of sunlight slip away. Night was falling, darkness settling in, but it didn't feel like an ending. Just a shift. With a sudden urge, she considered reaching out to Mark again. What if they could find a way to redefine what they had? But another voice tugged at her, reminding her that David was gone, and the devastation still loomed like a specter in the shadows. Are you thinking about calling him? Jack's voice broke through her thoughts, a hint of concern etched on his face. I don't know. But what if I did? Then we'll be with you, every step of the way, Elise said, earnestness filling her tone. Whatever you choose, we're here. Sarah felt a spark of courage ignite in her chest. The weight of the past pressed heavily, but the possibility of forging ahead felt tantalizing. Maybe I should reach out. Just to talk, she said, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through her. As they finished their coffee, the weight of her decision hung in the air. Would reaching out bring her clarity, or would it unravel her even further? And what if Mark had changed, or if his sudden presence hinted at something entirely unexpected? With her heart pounding and uncertain thoughts jostling for attention, Sarah wasn't sure where this would lead, but she knew it was time to find out. With her heart pounding, Sarah glanced at her phone. The black screen stared back at her, taunting with the weight of unmade choices. Should she call him? The thought sent a shiver through her, both terrifying and thrilling. Sarah? Jack's voice broke the silence, pulling her focus back to the diner. You okay? Yeah, just thinking. She forced a smile, but the hesitation lingered in her eyes. About everything. Elise is right. You don't have to rush into anything. Jack leaned forward, concern etched on his face. But you've got to give yourself the chance to heal, and part of that is having the tough conversations. Elise nodded slowly, her expression reflective. Sometimes, having those conversations helps you find closure. Even if it's messy. Closure. The word echoed in Sarah's mind as she watched the rain begin to splatter against the window, each drop a reminder of her tangled feelings. She closed her eyes, picturing David's smile warm and full of life. Then the image shifted to Mark, standing there, looking both familiar and foreign. The moment felt heavy. Okay, Sarah finally breathed out, each syllable laden with uncertainty. I'll text him. Are you sure? Jack asked, still concerned. Yeah. I think I have to. The decision felt monumental, and yet part of her felt lighter, as though a weight was lifting. Taking a deep, steadying breath, she picked up her phone, fingers trembling over the glass. She opened a new message, and as if on cue, a bolt of confidence surged through her veins. "Hey, Mark. Can we talk?" Sending the message was like throwing a stone into a pond, the ripples of uncertainty expanding outward, unpredictable. She almost pulled her fingers back, but she held firm, knowing this was the first step. The seconds stretched like hours, and she kept glancing at her phone, waiting for a reply that felt both distant and urgent. "What did you just say?" Elise whispered, an encouraging smile playing on her lips. "I texted him. I don't know what will happen next." The words hung in the air, mixed with the aroma of coffee and the fading whispers of conversations around them. It was exhilarating and frightening all at once. A vibration broke through her thoughts, and she nearly dropped the phone. The message was from Mark, of course. When? Her heart raced again. The straightforwardness of his reply caught her off guard, a bit of hope sparking in the back of her mind. "How about tomorrow?" She typed back, anxiety still clinging to her. "Sounds good. I'll meet you at the park." The park. A place that once felt safe and vibrant. Would it still carry that weight of familiarity? "Sure," she texted, her pulse quickening at the thought of meeting him. "What time?" 3 p.m. It was a simple conversation, but it felt like so much more. Each exchanged message weighed heavy with memories, regrets, and the promise of something new. "I did it," Sarah announced to her friends, a mixture of disbelief and empowerment in her voice. "See? You're already making progress," Jack said, relief washing over him. Elise beamed with pride. "You want to grab a bite before tomorrow?" "Sure," Sarah smiled, feeling a flicker of normalcy return. Maybe this was how it started, just small steps toward healing. As they finished up, the rain began to taper off, revealing a sky smeared with soft hues of twilight. The worries about what might happen tomorrow swirled in her mind, but for the first time in a while, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope rising within her. What would their conversation be like? And would it open doors to healing, or simply crack open old wounds? The possibilities danced in her thoughts as they left the diner, her heart beating a cautious rhythm in her chest. But the question loomed larger than the last lingering raindrop: could facing Mark lead her to a place she never expected? The next day dawned with a mix of anticipation and dread. Sarah woke to the soft light filtering through her curtains, illuminating the untamed thoughts swirling in her mind. Today was the day she would meet Mark. The weight of what that meant pressed heavily on her chest. She had spent the morning getting ready, trying to navigate her emotions while slipping into jeans that felt 2 sizes too tight. Each reflection in the mirror revealed traces of yesterday's doubt clinging to her like a shadow. With every brush stroke of mascara, she muttered words of encouragement to herself. "You can do this." As she stepped outside, a crisp breeze whispered through the air. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming flowers, and felt a hint of excitement building within. The sun, a giant golden disk, hung overhead and bathed everything in warmth. It felt like the universe was cheering her on, though she knew she couldn't escape the weight of this impending conversation. Her heart drummed in rhythm to her footsteps as she approached the park. Memories flooded her, laughter shared, secrets whispered, and the grounding connection she once had with Mark. Would they find that again? Or would it merely be a reminder of everything that was lost? Heading towards the familiar bench, she spotted him first. Mark sat there, hands shoved deep into his pockets, looking out at the shimmering lake. He seemed engrossed in his thoughts, and she felt a pang of nostalgia. He had always been the one to anchor her when her world felt stormy. Today, though, they carried a weight of their own. "Hey," she said softly, almost hesitant, as she approached. He turned, his eyes lighting up for a brief moment before settling back into caution. "Hey, Sarah." They exchanged awkward smiles, each holding tightly to the nerves coursing through them. She took a seat beside him, feeling the air thicken with unspoken words. "How have you been?" Mark asked, his tone gentle, but his eyes searched hers for the reality behind her surface. Sarah swallowed hard, the gravity of his question twisting her stomach. "I've been okay," she replied, testing the waters. "It's been a lot." Mark nodded, his face pensive. "I can only imagine." A brief silence followed. Sarah gazed at the lake, watching the ripples break the surface, a visual representation of the chaos swirling inside her. "I texted you because I thought we needed to talk about us." "About what happened?" At the mention of us, a palpable shift occurred. Mark's expression turned somber, and she could feel the air around them rocking with unsaid dialogues. "I miss you," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. The confession hit her like a wave crashing against the shore. She turned to face him, heart beating fast. "I miss you too. But it feels so complicated." He leaned closer, the urgency in his eyes evident. "It is complicated. But we can't ignore what we had. Can we?" Sarah's breath caught in her throat. 1,000 emotions raced through her: hope, fear, longing. She knew they had shared a bond stronger than most, yet now they stood at a crossroads, tethered to the past yet yearning for tomorrow. "I don't know how to move forward," she admitted, tears prickling the corners of her eyes. "I'm scared of getting hurt again. I still feel so raw. And I don't want to bring you down." "Sarah," Mark said, voice firm yet soft. "You're not a burden. I want to support you. More than anything, I want to understand." Before he could finish, the meaning of his words sunk in. Would they be ready to rebuild the pieces of something that had shattered? Or would the weight of their shared losses be too much to bear? The answer danced on the tip of her tongue. As Sarah looked into Mark's eyes, the warmth of their connection sparked a flicker of hope, but the fear of what lay ahead loomed large. "Can we really do this?" she murmured, the question hanging between them like the setting sun reflecting over the lake's surface, casting long shadows on their conversation. What would that path look like? And was she ready to embrace the journey? The moment hung between them, heavy and electric. Sarah searched Mark's face, hoping to find a sign, a guiding light, something that would assure her they could navigate this twisted path together. He stared back, his expression softening, vulnerability creeping in. "I know it's messy," he said slowly, choosing his words with care. "But life is messy. You taught me that. Remember those quiet nights we spent talking about our dreams? We never shied away from uncertainty back then." His words ignited a small flame in her heart, warm and bright but still flickering. "Yeah, I remember. We had plans." She paused, memories flooding her senses, long conversations about futures so vibrant, bursting with laughter and love. But everything changed. "I changed." "Change isn't always bad," Mark replied, reaching out to lightly graze her hand. His touch sent a rush of warmth through her veins. "You're stronger now, Sarah. I see that in you. This isn't just about us anymore, it's about who we are now. We've both changed. But maybe we can help each other navigate through it." Her heart raced, a mix of fear and hope threatening to topple the fragile barrier she built around herself. "I've struggled so much this past year," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Every day felt like a mountain, and some days I couldn't even take a step forward. It terrified me to think about adding anything or anyone else to that heaviness." A shadow crossed Mark's face, and she could see him absorbing her words. "I understand. I can't pretend to know what you went through, but I want to share that burden. Maybe even lighten it." "With what?" "I still don't know how to carry my own weight, let alone someone else's," she whispered, the tears threatening to spill over. Mark hesitated, then leaned closer. "What if I told you I'm here for the long haul? Not just for you, but for us. No matter how unsure or broken we feel." We can figure it out together. His sincerity wrapped around her like a warm blanket, but still, doubts danced in her mind. But what if it doesn't work out? What if we try and end up hurting each other even more? Mark's gaze locked onto hers, fierce and unwavering. That's the risk of love, isn't it? But think about it, wouldn't you rather take that chance than live with a what if? I'm not asking for a perfect outcome. Just a chance to explore what this could become together. The lake shimmered in front of them, each ripple reflecting the sunlight like a dream waiting to unfold. She could hear laughter echoing in her memory, the hint of joy pushing through her fears. Okay, Sarah finally breathed, overwhelmed. If we're going to try, we have to be honest with each other. No more hiding. No more secrets. It's going to be hard. Mark nodded earnestly. Hard as expected. But I promise to be right here, listening and understanding. I want to let you go through this alone. She felt the weight on her chest lift just slightly, a breath of fresh air filling her lungs. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way. There's one more thing I need to say. She took a deep breath, eyes steady on him. I might not be ready for a full-blown romance right now. But I can meet you halfway. Maybe we can start with friendship. Rebuilding trust and see where that leads. Mark's smile lit up his face, a blend of relief and determination. I think that's a great place to start. They lingered in a moment of shared hope, both contemplating the journey ahead filled with possibilities, uncertainty, and most importantly, the promise of healing. As they sat there in the fading light, Sarah felt the sting of fresh tears, but this time, they were accompanied by something new, possibility. She could feel a path beginning to form beneath their tentative feet. But just as her heart began to settle, a sudden commotion echoed from across the park, pulling her attention away from the moment they had just forged. A figure rushed into view, breathless and frantic. Sarah. Mark. You need to come quickly. The urgency in the voice shattered the calm, piercing through their fragile optimism. What had happened? As her heart raced again, she locked eyes with Mark. Was this a sign that their attempt to heal was about to be tested once more? The park was alive with sudden urgency. Sarah's heart raced as she turned to see a familiar face, Diana, one of the locals from Maplewood, her expression wide-eyed with worry. What is going on? Sarah asked, anxiety gnawing at her gut. It's about the diner, Diana gasped, her breath hitching. There's been an accident. Panic surged through Sarah, overwhelming the moment she had just begun to embrace with Mark. What happened? She pressed, adrenaline fueling her steps as she glanced at Mark, who looked just as alarmed. An old truck lost control. It smashed into the front of the diner. Rosie went to check on it. The revelation hit Sarah like a freight train. Rosie, her boss, her confidant. The weight of worry clutched her chest. Is everyone okay? She whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. I don't know. They're trying to clear the scene now. Mark's hand gripped Sarah's, grounding her amidst chaos. Let us go, he urged, determination in his eyes. We need to see. As they rushed toward the diner, fear and uncertainty danced in Sarah's mind. The diner had always been a sanctuary, a home. After everything she had faced, could it bear another storm? Upon arriving, the scene was intense. Emergency vehicles and lights lit the street, the sound of distant sirens mixing with murmurs from a growing crowd. The familiar neon glow of Rosie's diner dimmed, replaced by the flickering chaos of emergency responders. Sarah's heart sank as she searched for any sign of Rosie. Her mind raced with the memories, warm smiles, laughter, a second mother. Rosie! She called, voice cracking, pushing through the throngs of people. Diana grabbed her arm. Stay close. We need to find out what's happening. At that moment, Rosie stumbled from the entryway, clearly shaken but visibly intact. Relief flooded Sarah as she rushed forward and engulfed Rosie in a tight embrace. "Oh, thank God. Are you okay?" Rosie nodded, brushing away tears. "I'm fine, it could have been so much worse. The driver, he just lost control, and I was right there. But everyone inside is safe. We just need to clean up." Her voice trembled, yet it was filled with an incredible strength. Mark moved closer, offering support. "Is there anything we can do to help?" he asked, urgency in his tone. "Yes. Just hold everyone back and let the professionals do their job. We can worry about everything else later," Rosie replied. The air pulsed with the chaos around them, but Sarah's eyes rested on Rosie as the crowd remained vigilant. Sarah's pulse slowed, she took a deep breath, the weight of fear transforming into a strange kind of hope. In that moment, she felt the shadow of her past lift just briefly, illuminating a powerful realization. No matter how torn apart life became, the love and connections formed in the simplest places would always shine through. As the firemen began to assess the situation, Sarah turned to Mark and Diana. "Let us get the others. We need to support Rosie." They nodded and began to gather the community that had poured into the scene, instinctively working together to help in whatever way they could. Throughout the day, emotions swirled, laughter and tears mingled as old friends helped clean and repair. The atmosphere shifted, what started as a moment of horror transformed into a tapestry of resilience and solidarity. This was the heart of Maplewood, strong, vibrant, with a pulse that beat even in turmoil. By the time night fell, the diner stood partially damaged but proudly resilient. Amidst the laughter and cries for help, something deeper emerged within Sarah. She was not just a widow burdened by loss, she was part of a community, a family that lifted each other up in the darkest of times. As they stood outside, gazing at the stars emerging from behind scattered clouds, Sarah turned to Mark. "Thank you for being here with me," she breathed. Mark smiled, a warmth in his gaze. "I'll always be here, Sarah. Through anything." The weight in her heart eased a bit more. Perhaps they could build something together, the messy truth of life, healing as they moved forward, hand in hand. In that moment of clarity under the starlit sky, with community surrounding them, Sarah released the heavy fragments of her past. Together, they would navigate whatever lay ahead. For once, the uncertainty felt like an adventure, a potential for new beginnings and endless possibilities. So they stood, united by the weight of what they had faced, hope blooming anew. Tomorrow would come, but tonight belonged to them. And in that perfect evening, Sarah took a deep breath and embraced the tide of change, ready to love again. If you felt inspired by Sarah's incredible journey, don't wait. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and feelings about this amazing ending below. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share.